The blinds industry as a whole has always had an issue with tube deflection. You're taking an aluminium or a steel tube, you're suspending it between a bracket at each end, you have no means of supporting it in the middle because it has to move, it has to roll. Over the last 10 years or so, we've seen glazing areas just getting bigger and bigger. Fantastic view out, fantastic at bringing the natural light in, but what so often isn't thought about is how are we going to control that natural light coming in. What you could do is you could put several blinds across that width, but you're always going to have a gap between fabrics, which is obviously a light gap, and it's also a privacy gap. Can't we have a blind that covers the whole thing? But then you start running into these challenges with deflection, because to do 5 meters wide on a roller blind, as a single roller blind, what, 120, 150 mil tube? You know, that's huge. So I don't want that on display. Okay, we're gonna have to build it into the ceiling. Well, we haven't got space, how do we do that? So that is always the conversation that is happening, and it's usually happening too late. You've got this enormous span, and traditionally you need an enormous tube size to achieve that, or you split it into multiple blinds and you get all those problems with light gaps and privacy gaps. The solution that we have coming is really going to answer a very real problem currently in the blinds industry.
So I'm Bernard, from the company Bimatech. We are the inventors of Zoomtech. Customers are wanting to have the blinds bigger and bigger and bigger, not to have 2 blinds, to have 1 blind. The expectations of customers were sometimes higher than we could just fulfill with the traditional system. Because a fabric, when you hang it on a tube that is a little bit bending, is giving this belly or this V shape, and that's not a nice thing to have. It's visibly not aesthetic. We were a little bit unhappy sometimes with not being able to fulfill the expectations of a perfect blind. Zoomtech is a gravity compensation system that is integrated into the tube of a winding system, and it is preventing the tube from deflection. So the tube isn't deflecting at all, and it is compensating all the gravity forces that are working into the tube. And now, so we are making customers happy. So not only customers, but also the architects and the people who likes the aesthetics and big windows, and so to have really a nice roller blind that is functionally looking very minimalistic, but with a perfect aesthetic. So if you want a better looking blind and it's a little bit wider, then you should use the Zoomtech.
The office will upload the job into the internal system, which then will come through to this machine here, which is the Zoomtech machine. As you can see on the front here, you'll have a number of jobs that have already been complete, and the last job here is the job that we are going to work on today. So you'll click into that, select it, and then what it will bring up is the tube length of what you require. Okay, so the tube is in now, so you'll press activation, followed by start, and then the machine will start feeding the tube through, align itself, and then start working its magic. Yeah, so basically what you'll see now is the Zoomtech machine will start working the printout for where the bearings need to go. Here's the first one. It's pretty much marking exactly where you need the bearing to go. So these are the bearings, of which will be placed in the exact markers here. And then you've got the end bearing here that will be fixed into the end of the tube itself. That then slots in the end of this tube. And there you have it. One Zoomtech tube ready to be inserted into a blind tube.
We had a project here in the heart of Surrey that had 100 by 100 blind space boxes nicely installed, which looked really nice. We came and measured up for the blinds. We got them ordered up, and it was 3.5 wide by 1500 drop. So my first thought was it'll be fine. And actually the 3.5 wide and the 1500 drop created a rolled up diameter. Even though it was less than 100 mil, it was still tight. And not only was it tight, but the hem bar didn't fit into the blind space box. We didn't know quite what to do, and we came across this groundbreaking technology, Evolve Zero, and we thought, right, let's give it a bash. Instead of a 65mm tube, it was a 44mm tube, and I thought to myself, nah, that's not going to work. I couldn't believe it. It looked like a tiny tube, and I thought this is going to deflect. Zero deflection. The hem bar disappeared perfectly into the blind space box. Client came and she couldn't believe it. There were no smiles on the fabric. It was absolutely perfection. We're now got the next phase, and we're now measuring up to 4.7 meter blinds by 2.7 drop. Fantastic.
Tube deflection is an issue. We work in high-end residential properties predominantly, where we have quite large windows. Tube deflection creates a festooning of the fabric.
There have been occasions in the past where it's been a real issue. As you start to creep up size-wise in a domestic installation, barrels get larger, brackets get larger, and in a commercial installation you can get away with that, but in someone's rear extension, they don't want a big clunky blind up there.
The traditional solution for this deflection is to use a more substantial tube, but this has its own issues in that it creates weight and bulk, and in a domestic environment those are two things that you want to try and avoid.
So large glazing is extremely popular with high-end residential clients, and obviously it's something that architects are specifying a lot, but often to try and shade that, especially if you don't want multiple blinds, you don't want light gaps, you want full blackout, it can be very challenging, and the solution at the moment is to go for a big tube to counter tube deflection, which obviously isn't a residential grade product. To be able to span these kind of widths with a product that's going to be aesthetically pleasing and it's going to link in with all of the other smaller windows that you have is hugely exciting.
At Umbra, we have a solution coming that is quite unique, quite groundbreaking, quite innovative. I was going to say defies physics, but actually it doesn't defy physics. It is physics, and it's a solution that actually eliminates deflection. This is actually a solution that takes quite a small tube size and then actually eliminates deflection. I know that there's going to be a lot of excited people, because I think as soon as we show it to people, they are going to go, I can see the possibilities of that.